Now, that isn't what this is supposed to be all about. There is a question of what is appropriate at a certain grade level, and you have to have reading and writing tasks that make sense for the bulk of your students, with some kinds of adjustments for those with IEPs, which so far we don't know, but they will be. This is one problem area. And some other adjustment for those who are way ahead. And the effort is apparently to reduce variation in academic achievement, not to cater to individual needs. So we have these bizarre writing standards that are developmentally inappropriate, and they don't correlate with each other. If you're going to ask students to write something that has a claim in it, give them reading material that shows a claim and help them to identify in what they read what a paragraph is, what a topic sentence in a paragraph is, what a claim would be conceptually, because you're dealing now with rhetorical structure of a whole piece of writing. But that isn't there because the people who wrote the document don't understand it. And whatever advice they get or got, we don't know about, but they certainly didn't get the right advice. If they were getting advice, this is a semi-facetious remark, from the departments of education that have produced such an abundance of terrible standards in the past, why would you expect this document to be any better than the awful sets of standards we were told was the reason we needed a set of national standards? They were vetting. The same people who wrote the old lousy standards are vetting the new set of standards, if indeed they are, or giving advice to the writers. Then we come to this other major flaw in the English language arts standards that has been there's been a lot of publicity about it. That's the division of reading instruction into 10 standards for informational reading and 9 standards for literature at every grade level. So what it means is about 50% or over for something called informational text, which English teachers typically don't teach because they're not teaching information in the English class that way, and less than 50% for literature, which is what they have been trained to teach. So you've got a reduction of the very kinds of texts that English teachers have always used by training and tradition in public school curriculum and elsewhere to help students learn how to read between the lines. Because if there's any one place where kids learn how to develop analytical reading and thinking, it's by learning to read between the lines of a complex literary text. You don't learn to read analytically by looking at a history textbook, a science textbook, or a math textbook. They give you information straight. That's what they're supposed to do. They're not trying to trick the student reader. They're trying to provide you the information in a readable form. So by cutting down on literary text, you're cutting down on the opportunities that kids have always had traditionally for learning how to develop analytical reading, which then can lead into critical thinking. This claim that these standards will develop critical thinking, deeper learning, more learning, whatever these mantras are, is nonsense because there's no way this can happen with the kind of text they're being given unless they've changed definitions of those words. So I will conclude by saying not only are they not fewer, clearer, and deeper, they're actually muddy and not rigorous, not internationally benchmarked. They go against everything that we know from research that has any body of validity to it over the years in education, and there isn't much we do know that way. You have tests being built on these particular standards that your kids are going to be given starting next year, and that means they're always started.
They're testing the test this year.
They're teaching to the test over.
No, they're testing the test.
It's a piloting the test over. Yeah.
It started it last year.
Already last year.
Some is very aligned.
A couple of things that should be done. is that we need to get feedback from teachers. Number one, which the unions can do, we don't need the superintendent to be on the hot seat for it, is to ask teachers to suggest what revisions they would make to the standards they teach to. Send them all to the State Department of Ed and to your legislature and to your governor's office. But put it professionally in a positive way. What revisions would you make to the standards you are now teaching to? That's easy enough. It doesn't say we want to get rid of them. We just want to know what their view is. The legislature then needs to pass, I think, a bill that says all teachers must be required to take a test that is going to be given to their kids before they give it to their kids. That will enable teachers to find out what is on those tests. And if they have any reaction, as the National of New Hampshire teachers had, you will have all the information you need to know that you've got to get rid of these tests right away. The teachers have got to be able to take them. And I had the material here, and I gave it, I think, to whoever was here. Jessica, wherever Jessica is, to run off the comments by the National and New Hampshire teachers if you haven't seen them. Because they weren't even talking about the content so much as all the other issues related to the testing for middle school that made these tests totally inappropriate. So how this got to be the way it is, and how you get around your own legislatures that may be under the thumb of a governor who wants to be reelected. This is what's happening. It's not a Republican Democratic issue. This is what I've discovered. I'm going to the states that have mainly Republican governors, and they've got their own parent groups that are up in arms, telling them that if they want to be reelected, they've got to do something. But it doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Their goal is to get reelected, apparently, not to care about whether what they're doing with public education completely undermines it, destroys it. And what parents can do is a sad story, because I'm not sure what advice I can give. The other day in Louisiana, start homeschooling your kids, finding groups of homeschoolers who can provide the kind of content that you know that they should be taught. But it means scrapping your public schools and starting all over again in a different way. You've got to get the money directed for it, per child. But I'm not going to say any more, because I know there are a couple of speakers that are apparently going to talk here. And then I will be happy to answer their questions.